All right. Welcome to another episode of How I Met Your Mortgage. As always, I'm your host, Adam Smith, with Just the Tips Coaching. And our guest today is somebody that we really like, we really adore. It's somebody that's in our market, which is really, really fantastic for us. And just one of the nicest guys you're going to come across. And we don't get to say that a whole lot with how bizarre our business is. But welcome to the show, Robin Gerlach. Hi, Robin. How are you, man?
Good. How are you,
Good.
Adam? I love
Um,
that intro.
oh, well, um,
You're throwing shade at a
okay.
lot of people in our industry right out of the gates. I love it.
Um,
Let's
I
go.
think that when we take into account any licensed industry, 99% give the rest a bad name.
That's fair. Yeah.
And I think that's true of everything from, hairdressers to attorneys and certainly mortgage originators and real estate agents. And yeah, it's just it's a unique thing to find people that overcome all of that and do good work, are successful, are loved, adored, respected by clients and colleagues, and then certainly are able to still do all the human things. You and I talked a little bit about that before we went live, and I'm in the midst of some of that right now with a relative that I've
Yeah.
played a lot of caregiver for over the last couple of months, and there will be more of that work for me today. So, yeah,
Good for
it's
you. They're lucky
life.
to have you. That's all I'll say.
It's actually a grandparent, my
Okay.
only surviving one, and at 98 years old has had a kick-ass ride, and
Good.
it's been good to uh, be a part of that caregiving
Yeah.
process.
I mean, making it to 98 years that's a huge victory for them.
Yeah.
So,
I'll do you one better. She had a sister make it to 106.
wow. Good
Yeah.
genetics. Hey,
Yeah.
you got your whole lifetime ahead of you, Adam.
Yeah, and I'm not even halfway there by those numbers.
Yeah, exactly. There you
So
go.
yeah, maybe it's now time to start a midlife crisis rather
Yeah.
than doing that 10 or 20 years ago. So yeah, all right. So let's get back to the lecture at hand because you and I could just have friendly chit chat for eons, literally. But it's been a minute since we've done this. And when we wait a minute, and this has obviously been a long one, there's a lot of change that goes on in real estate, in mortgages, that is, if you looked at it snapshot to snapshot, you'd consider it insane. So if we just looked at it like it was a day that had gone by between the last time you and I had this conversation or any similar conversation, nobody would believe that it's true. All kinds of strange things going on. Today's no exception. We all learned that Real Brokerage bought out Remax. I
Yeah.
mean, that's obviously big, big news. But when we talk about the nature of things that have changed, because you and I had to reschedule this, we never got to talk about the lawsuit and settlements that went on with real estate commissions.
Hmm.
We haven't been able to talk about what has really developed with AI in
Yeah.
either of our industries. I mean, there's so many things that if we, looked at it day to day, it would be mind boggling. And of course, if we're only looking at it year over year, then it seems relatively progressive. Although these are things that develop quickly, unfold quickly, accelerate quickly. So, yeah, it's been a lot, but just in the interim, why don't you give us an update as to what Robin's been up to? Because it
Hmm.
has been a minute since we talked, and where you're at, and how things have developed for you over the last couple of years. And yeah, whatever strikes a chord or, strikes your fancy, we'll chat more about.
Okay. Well, I believe the last time we spoke was 2023. So we're coming up on 2.5, 3 years since we
Wow.
last chatted. There's absolutely been a lot happening in our industry. As you referenced, the change in, commissions and how they're paid out and how they're marketed or not marketed in the real estate industry, I think is probably the biggest change. And then what has come after that in our industry is interesting, that we're seeing every day with consolidation to larger brokerages. Um, yeah, I mean, in my own business, it's funny because not a lot has changed. And as you know, Adam, like we are the brand and we're the ones who are helping our clients no matter which company that we're hanging our license with. There's always so much that's going on that I read about in real estate industry news sites, Inman, Housing Wire, and yeah, all the headlines. I mean, Compass versus Zillow, Real acquiring a Remax this morning, that was huge and totally unexpected. But I guess some people expected it in the industry, like Remax is going to get acquired by somebody. But um, I mean, in my day to day, I focus on who I'm helping, what what clients do I have that need help right now, and of course, I need to take into account how laws are changing, how our contracts are changing, and how our marketing rules are changing for listings. So those are all taken into account. But on the ground, as a realtor, as a lender, a mortgage broker like yourself, like we're just helping. Sometimes we get so stuck in the weeds with helping our clients that yeah, we have to pull our head up and say, okay, what's going on in the industry? So I think, the elephant in the room that I'm sure you've talked about with other agents is how are consumers paying us real estate agents, specifically buyers agents? Because historically that's been marketed on the MLS as, with this listing, we're offering a co-op for any buyer's agent who brings us a buyer of 2.5 or 2.8 or 3%. So it was set from the beginning. And the lawsuit came about in 2019. If for folks who already know this story, I'm sorry. So I'll try to keep it quick, but if you don't, I think it's important to give a little bit of context to what Adam referenced. And there was a lawsuit that started in 2019 and became a class action lawsuit of home sellers saying, we don't feel like it's fair to pay a buyer's agent who's advocating for the buyer. They're on the other side. Their buyer should pay them. And, they have a point. And it's all market dependent too, because they felt like it was so easy to sell the home in 2019. And especially on the tail end of COVID, you put a sign up in the yard and with 2.75% rates, people are lining up to buy real estate, and so it became such a strong seller's market for 3 or 4 years that sellers didn't really see the value in having to pay that much in commission. And that's what was the impetus of the lawsuit that then Department of Justice picked up and said, okay, uh, basically what came out of the settlement is uh, they no longer sellers will not offer a co-op to a buyer's agent online or on the listing. It cannot be offered anywhere on the MLS. And that was kind of the whole reason the MLS existed in the first place. And so now what came out of that is, yes, listing agents and sellers cannot offer that to a buyer's agent. However, it's still being paid. Like not much has really changed because the market has slowed down. We're not in 2019 or 2020 anymore. Here in 2025 and 2026, we have double the amount of housing inventory that we had then. So it's harder to sell a house. And so sellers are saying, I don't care. I'll pay a buyer's agent. Just bring me a buyer, And so the practice of paying a buyer's agent has not really gone away. It is negotiable. It's a part of the purchase contract now.
Always has been negotiable.
Yeah, it's
Right.
always been negotiable. And that I think there are some bad actors in our industry are the reason that this became a lawsuit where maybe you're telling the consumer that it's not negotiable or what, but it's always been negotiable. I mean, that's why you go on a listing appointment and you're competing with somebody else who's offering a better commission and you have to demonstrate your value. So yeah, I mean, that part has changed. Now, when we're writing in a purchase contract, we're writing in how much as a buyer's agent, how much I want the seller to pay me, or how much will the buyer pay me. So it's literally becoming a negotiation point of the contract. And if the market ever gets back to being a huge seller's market, this is going to be an issue for buyer's agents who are going to have to take some hits potentially on their commission or ask the buyer to pay the commission. So that's when I think we're really going to see the changes is when the market shifts to be kind of what it was in 2020 and 2021, which I don't know when it's going to get to be that kind of a frenzy again, because I don't think I'm not going to speculate on rates, but I don't think they're ever going to come down below 3% in our career
I
again.
I will speculate, and I would agree.
Okay, good. You're the professional there. So, but yeah, I mean, now we're kind of in this flat, not really appreciating market. It's a balanced market, which I think is great because there's more negotiation happening than ever. And so, yeah, on the ground, it hasn't changed significantly, but now it's just front and center that this is a part of the contract that how people are getting paid is being negotiated right up front. So that's interesting.
Yeah, there's certainly a bit more transparency in that
Yeah.
process.
Yeah.
Obviously, really well educated buyers and sellers. And by the way, guys, that's on you. You're the ones that have been educating your buyers and sellers. So if you've been doing that properly for, the length of your career, assuming it spans to an era prior to all of this going on, then a non-issue for you. You've made it clear that this is part of the process. You've made it clear that this is always all negotiable, so on and so forth. I think leading up to it, it was really a matter of optics. So if I'm selling a home and I'm paying a specific amount in commission, and some of it is going to my agent and some of it is going to the buyer's agent, and I really start to believe, I don't think that it's true, that I'm paying the buyer's agent and shouldn't be. The bottom line is that if I'm the agent representing the seller, the optics are that the buyer is paying it because they're going to pay more for the house in order to cover that. So
Right.
really the buyer is paying it. And if
Right.
I'm the buyer's agent, then the optics are, well, it's worked into the price of the house, so the seller's paying it. Now, it's funny because both are true and neither are true. It's kind of like, what's the theory about the cat in the box, and is the cat alive or dead?
Yeah.
Because it was always just about the optics. If you're
Right.
representing a seller, you're making it clear that the buyer's actually paying it because they're paying what you're asking for the house, whatever number you've agreed upon contractually, and that number is worked into that price. And if you're representing the buyer, the formula is the same. It's just that, yeah, the initial contract is with the listing agent and their seller, and that the commission is going to come out of that. And is the buyer paying a higher price because the buyer's agent needs to get paid? Maybe. Is the seller paying, losing more money because the bottom line is that it's always been this way. And
Right.
it's always been negotiable. It's always been about the optics. And now there's just an additional layer of transparency to it, that we're just trying to make sure that more consumers, buyers and sellers, both sides of that coin, are seeing it a little clearer, understanding it a little better. But outside of that, I think since this changed, it's really kind of been business as usual.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you nailed it. I mean, without a buyer, there is no commission being paid to anybody because there's no money on
Sure.
the table.
Yeah.
I mean, you need the buyer, and if they're paying cash or if they have a lender, you need the buyer and the bank. And those are the important parties who are making the whole transaction run. And of course, the realtors are there as, guidance to put guardrails on everything and to keep the liability lower for the buyer and seller too. I think that's something that got missed in this, is how much liability is on the table in a real estate transaction. One of the largest claims and litigation here in Colorado is lack of disclosure, over the last couple of years, and that's why they've really had to hammer home, hey, as a seller, you need to be as transparent as possible in filling out this seller's property disclosure. Because if the buyer goes in and 3 months later they're talking to the neighbor and the neighbor mentions, oh yeah, when they had the flood in the house that time,
Wait, what?
that. Yeah, wait. And so we're seeing a lot of that, and it's so important for a listing agent to prep their sellers. But when I'm on the listing side, I would much rather have a buyer come through who has representation, because not only are we sharing the liability, but I know they have somebody guiding them to do all the proper diligence that they need to do. So when the transaction is closed, everyone can sleep at night, and that's something I think hasn't been discussed enough throughout this whole lawsuit issue.
Well, even prior to that, I think through the history of the licensed real estate agent, there's been very little understanding from the consumer perspective of that legal liability. That in most places, and I've done some deals in other states where, literally the contract is like 2 pages and you fill in 3 blanks, the price, the closing date, and then I think you have your horse stamp his horseshoe print at the bottom of it, whatever. That may have been Montana. In any case, the consumer doesn't really understand that basically what's going on, certainly in Colorado and in a lot of other places, that real estate agents, licensed real estate agents, are literally taking on a segment of legal practice, real estate law, contract law, that you are behaving in a similar manner when it comes to contract documents, to disclosure documents, to even things all the way down that line of like malpractice insurance. You have to carry it because those kinds of things can exist. When I see a consumer entering into a transaction without representation, that makes it hard to sleep at night. No question.
Exactly.
So I do see some of that, but I think the biggest gap there is that the consumer doesn't understand that you're literally practicing a segment of law.
Right.
And the liability that comes with that is enormous.
Yeah, we have to get errors and omissions insurance every year with, $1 million in coverage, and so we pay for that on an annual fee, which is fair. I mean, every small business needs to have some form of insurance, right?
Protection.
Protect themselves from liability of things that can come up. And so I think that's naturally a part of it. We are running, small businesses. I mean, real estate agents, mortgage brokers, we need to look at this like a business and that we're running, and you need to protect the business, but you also need to protect it preventatively by continuing education, having these kind of conversations and educating the public on everything that's going on behind the scenes. One of the things, so I work with the brokerage Compass, and one of the things they rolled out is a Compass One dashboard that came in the last 6 or 7 months that I really like, because it shows our checklist on the back end of everything that we're doing that we can show to our client, and say, hey, here's what's coming up in case they ever have questions. And they can also see that we're not just putting a sign in the yard and saying, hey, it's for sale, bring your buyers. There's a lot more going on in the back end. So I think more transparency is absolutely the way to go. And that's how you separate, professionals who are actually doing a great job and being proactive about getting their clients to their goals, and folks who are just kind of going through the motions and trying to get a paycheck.
Wow. And Robin, you were doing that before any of this came to light, before there ever was any, whisper of a class action lawsuit regarding real estate commissions.
Yeah.
You were doing that. And to be perfectly honest, if you weren't, you probably wouldn't be doing this now. I would be willing to bet that the vast, vast majority of agents, I mean, we know NAR stats, 80% fail in 2 years, 85% in 5 years. And we've just about come up on that kind of a timeline from when that started to its finish. That number is probably higher. And if we just take out the people that weren't doing that kind of education, that kind of disclosure, that kind of explanatory work about how the entire process, not just selling or buying a house, but the entire process, like how is the agent getting paid, that they were actually educating their consumers on the entire process.
Right.
How many agents are left since 2019 that were doing that? 5%?
Wow. I don't know. That's a good question.
It's a slim number. I'll give you another one that'll blow your mind. How many agents have seen a buyer's market?
Yeah. I know. Very few.
I mean, the last time we really had a heavily tilted buyer's market was probably 08, 09.
Yeah.
We're getting on 20 years.
2011, 2012, I think, is when we started to see the shift, at least based on numbers.
Yeah, and it was probably balanced in like 2010.
Yeah.
And then started to shift back into a seller's market. So how many agents just using those stats alone were in the business in 07, 08?
Right. And
1 or 2%?
when one of my mentors in this business, and he's been doing this for 30 years, and I've been working on the same team with him, Dale Becker, and he said, tailwinds, when we have a market with tailwinds, everything's easy. The deals are easier. There's less friction because money's cheaper. So buyers are lining up, and that creates an atmosphere for really bad habits to form.
Yes, it
And
does.
and over those 4 or 5 years, I mean, their agents were getting away with some really bad habits, and consequentially, I mean, buyer's remorse was at an all-time high. You're writing in appraisal gap coverages of
Oof.
$50,000 and taking it that far over market price. And naturally, when the tailwinds shift to become a little bit more like headwinds, there's going to be a lot of froth in pricing in the market. And now we're seeing that in certain areas. I've talked to several folks who, if they bought in between 21 and 23 or 24, they don't have much equity. And if anything, it's gone the other way, and so I think it's holding up a mirror to, even when things become so much with a tailwind, you have to be very careful, um, because everything's going to change. I mean, it's not going to be like that forever. It's not sustainable. I think the market we're in right now is great because there is balance, and because it takes skill for agents to negotiate for their clients. I mean, we're holding kind of a balance of power depending on the house, in the neighborhood, where the buyers are. It's not like so heavily favored towards one side of the transaction, which was very difficult for buyers in that landscape. And it set up for, where a lot of folks can be struggling right now. But yeah.
So, actually, I want to get your take on this because we rarely talk about it. And I do think that it's kind of an interesting subject from more of a mathematical and economic standpoint, which is where I obviously run. I've got to be doing the mathing all the time. The math
Mhm.
has to math. Um, for years leading up to, well, the last time we had a balanced market, there was a general consensus about what a balanced market meant, how long the inventory should be around, what days on market should look like, how long you should expect it to take to sell a home, to find a home, to buy a home. And what that translated to when it came to a number of listings at any given moment in the residential sector. And for the Denver metro, and for those of you that aren't local, there are 7 counties that make up the Denver metro area. And while we have 4 or 5 million people in the metro area, please do remember that the city of Denver is relatively small. Less than 1 million people actually live within the city limits, but our metropolitan area is quite large. And at the time, it was like 30 to 35,000 listings defined a balanced market. That was the proper inventory. I think today we're probably at about half that.
Yeah. I mean, today we're at just shy of 10,000, active, like, months end. We capped out at 15,000 listings
Okay. So
last
that would
year.
have been about half.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. At our highest peak of inventory, which was last August, we hit over 15,000, just barely.
And it
But
has,
prior to that, we hadn't hit 15,000 since 2011.
okay.
And so yeah, during the 2008 market crash, our supply was up close to 30,000 listings.
Okay.
So we're hitting a point where we're halfway there. Um,
But
there's a lot of,
halfway.
yeah, like,
We're halfway there, and yet all of the indicators point to where we are right now being balanced.
right. I think it's a balanced market. There's a lot of talk about 6 months of inventory being a balanced market.
Right.
I think in Denver Metro, it's more like 3 months of inventory.
Okay, so we're at about half that,
Yeah,
and it's probably just time to move the needle. I don't think
right.
we can use 6 months of inventory as a definition of a balanced market anymore.
I don't think so either.
Okay.
No, I mean, I think that was in a time where the MLS was all printed in books and we'd have to take it over to our clients. Everybody has access to the information now.
That's
And,
true. Yep, that's a big
and
difference.
that's come about in the last 2 decades. And over the last 2 decades, it seems like when there's more balance in our market, days on market, the pricing flattening out, it's typically when there's about 3 months of inventory. when there's 6 months of we haven't had 6 months of inventory since 2009 or 10, and that was a buyer's market, right? It's
Yeah.
coming out of the crash. And it hasn't gotten to 6 months of inventory since then. So that this is a debate amongst professionals in the real estate industry that the 6 months represents balance. I mean, it's all arbitrary, right? I think what represents balance is when prices flatten out, and prices are flat now. Like,
Yeah, we're back to a pretty normal, negligible amount of
yeah,
appreciation. We're not
depending on the
doing
time of
50 to
year.
20% year over year. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Last year, according to DMAR, Denver Metro Association of Realtors, the overall Denver Metro depreciated from January to January, 25 to 26, by like 1.3%. So a nominal amount, and it depends on what neighborhood you're in. And again, this is the whole 7-county metro area. So it's a large sample size. Some neighborhoods appreciated by a couple percentage points, some depreciated by 3 to 5 percentage points, and they average out, right? But all that to say is plus or minus a couple percentage points it's a flat market. We're not keeping up with inflation, so it's
Yeah.
flat,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. No, we're not. Although I do think that some of it's corrective.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
if we do get back into what would be healthy economically, not that I think the economy is healthy, nor do I think it really ever will be. And there are moments when it's a paper tiger and it looks fierce, but you can punch a hole right through it.
Yeah.
And of course, I recommend to all of you and to all of your clients, buyers, sellers, borrowers, etc., that they make their own economy.
Right.
Where does the market suit them best?
Yes.
What is the market actually doing?
I
But
agree.
to be perfectly honest, if we were back in a range where it's 2, 3, 4, 5% appreciation, and frankly, while we're really close, we were certainly there before the current issues with Iran, so leading through February. Interest rates were probably about where they should be. If we had a healthy economy, we were starting to hover around 5% or so, depending on the situation. A little bit below in really great scenarios, and a little above, not so much. And yeah, if we can maintain that, then that's really kind of the definition of what a healthy real estate economy, what a healthy mortgage economy should look like. So yeah, the pendulum swings. There's no question. Is it ever going to swing where mortgage rates are below 3%? No, I don't think so. Not in our lifetime. Although you already dated us with paper MLS books. Jesus, Robin, you just gave the entire audience a clue as to how freaking old we are. So thanks for that. But yeah, I think that we're really not all that far off from what real estate mortgages should be doing if we had a healthy economy.
Right. Yeah.
So really the bottom line is, where is it healthy for you as a buyer, as a seller, as an agent representing those people, and what's in their financial and economic best interests? Because that's what it has to boil down to.
Yeah. What I've been telling buyers, and I know not everybody in the industry likes this because there's always the saying, it's always a good time to buy, it's always a good time to sell. And that's not necessarily the case. I mean, tell that to somebody who bought a condo in 2022 at the peak, and then their HOA premiums went up because of insurance costs, and now they've depreciated. So it's always neighborhood specific, area specific, and unit style specific. The condo market's been struggling. And so what I've been telling my home buyers who are looking to buy is like, listen, this is a commitment. Real estate is a long game. It's not you're going to buy it and you're going to make money on it by holding it for 1 to 2 years. That market is gone, and that market was a flash in the pan from 19 to 2022. But we can't, that created bad habits of what people expect real estate to do. And historically, it doesn't. It grows over time. It's still a great play over time, but that's the thing, the keyword, time. So I've been telling my buyers, listen, if you think you're going to be living here in the Denver metro area for at least 3 or 4 years, then buying a home makes sense. If you're not sure, and your life may take you somewhere else in the next 1 to 2 years. Honestly, let's be transparent. It probably makes more sense to rent because you're going to lose money if you buy and then you sell in a year or two with transaction costs. I mean, unless you force the appreciation by buying a house that you're able to put a good amount of work into, maybe cosmetic updates, and you bring it up to speed with the other houses in that neighborhood, which is very similar to what a fix and flip was. But if you did that over a year or two, you might get some money back,
Sure.
right?
Maybe
But
even what you put into it.
maybe what you put into it, but you just buy it and hold. In 1 to 2 years, it's not like you're turning around with 10% annual appreciation like we used to. So I think it's important that we let buyers know, listen, it's a good time to buy if you're committed to staying here for at least 3 or 4 years. If you see your life here, then absolutely get in now, because it's about buying and waiting, right? Time will do its thing with real estate. So, yeah,
There's an old colloquialism along those lines. We don't wait and buy real estate. We buy real estate and wait.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, get in when you can.
And while there was an anomaly during the pandemic era, it was an anomaly.
Exactly.
And if you are investing in real estate for the purposes of making large margins over 12, 24, 36 months, well, there was that one tiny little window in my lifetime and it has passed.
Yeah.
If you're going to sit on it for 5, 10, 20, 30 years, maybe even legacy property. We do quite a bit of commercial work. We talk to a lot of commercial investors that know full well that, our cash flow is not great. We're, buying this apartment building with a cap rate of 5. It's adequate, but it's not great.
Right.
Right. And the cost to borrow that money right now is not great.
Right.
But our kids and their kids are going to own this property.
That's
then that's, if we're talking about legacy property, then that's a long-term play, and you're gonna make money.
Yep, it's time to call real estate what it is. It's a great long-term play,
Well, it always has been.
It always has
except for that window.
And the window changed everybody's perception and expectations of what real estate can do for your wealth. And no, now we're back into normalcy. And it's just I think there's also I was looking at stats that the amount of this is per NAR, National Association of Realtors, single males like in their 30s is like at an all-time low buying real estate.
Yeah.
And you also look at the amount of money that's been poured into the cryptocurrency market and sports betting, gambling. And that's where that money's going. It's looking for the dopamine hit of like, I can, put this money in here and maybe in a week it'll double or triple, or I'll lose it all. And it's like real estate doesn't do that. It's such a long-term thing, but
it did for that little period.
It's a responsible thing to invest in my opinion. You just have to have the right expectations going into it.
And I know we're already over limit and I'm getting the flashing lights over it, but
okay,
guys, we had to reschedule our chat with Robin. So bear with us here. We've got a lot to talk about. I will frequently tell borrowers about my first real estate purchase. And single family home, starter home, but what it really did to propel me to a new financial level, to be able to purchase a nicer primary residence, to be able to purchase investment property, to be able to purchase vacation property, these kinds of things. And it's all true. It's absolutely 100% true. When I sold that first property, I eliminated all my debt. I put a nice down payment on a significantly nicer home, on and on. But the part that I may be neglecting to regale them with is that I owned that house for almost 20 years.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think when I sold it, it had more than doubled in value, and its last sale, it had tripled from what I paid for it. But that was a quarter of a century.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
So there's the actual snapshot of, it's an amazing way to make money over a long term.
That's right. We have to set that expectation and reset it because folks have gotten, I think, used to the old ways, which was, again, just a window of time.
Oh, and a brief one at that over the grand scheme. of what has happened and what will happen.
Right.
Very brief window of time, assuming humans don't completely destroy themselves, in in the next coming years.
That's for another conversation.
That's another conversation, and we've got more to have because we didn't really get to talk nitty gritty about your business and all the things we usually jive on at JTT, like lead gen and client retention and team structure and all those things that we work on with our coaching clients. So you and I are going to have to do this again.
Okay.
All right.
So
I'll put that on the books. But Robin, I do think it's really important to understand that we do have some consumer audience that they really should have the same level of respect and admiration that my team does for you and your business. And if they want to work with you, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, you can get a hold of me calling or texting me 303-957-6397.
Do it again.
303-957-6397.
All right, I'm going to post that in these bits and pieces so that our video viewership, not that it's robust, can get that, but obviously I wanted you to repeat it and slow it down so that the podcast audience actually could. So if you're in the Denver metro and you are looking to buy or sell, Robin is an incredible resource. And I'll tell you what, even if you're not working with Robin, we've hit him up a number of times for input and insight on, hey, this seems a little weird to us. We've never seen this in a real estate contract before. What's your take? And he's happy to share his wealth of knowledge with all of you. I promise it is about, Robin shares the mindset that a lot of us do, where you just help as many people as you can get what they want, and you'll get what you want.
Be a resource, be a professional.
Just take good care of people, and the rest of this shit falls into place.
That's right.
No question. All right. Thank
you. The best lead gen strategy is taking care of your clients.
Yeah.
Then they'll tell their friends and family.
And even the ones that aren't your clients.
Yes.
Because then they'll become your clients.
Exactly.
And then it's a perpetual motion machine.
Do right by people. That's right.
Do right by people. Oh.
Yeah.
Humans. We're so weird.
Humans.
Okay. Yeah. Well, Robin, thank you. I know carving out this kind of time on a Monday, especially when we had to reschedule it, is no small feat. So thank you for doing that. For the rest of you, I'm going to keep our, little extra brief here, to be really honest. I've got books on these subjects, and we do an annual conference on it. And we do this podcast every week. We're well into our 9th year here. So you could probably go pick up, I don't know, it's 300 or 400 episodes of How I Met Your Mortgage. We do a weekly video blog, all the things. Go check out justthetipscoaching.com and you'll find that. And that's really about it, other than me thanking Robin again for doing this again for us. So thank you, brother. I really appreciate
Thanks
it.
for the platform.
Yeah, I'm going to run the extra. Don't run off too far, because we were short on time before we were able to, or before we had to go live. So for the rest of you, have a great week. We'll see you next week with another episode of How I Met Your Mortgage. And until then, make it a good one.